Greetings, kind ones. Greetings, Lojban soldiers. I feel happiness on a social level that you are currently attending. This is going to be an exegesis on the Bible of Lojban, the complete Lojban language. First, I would like to make the point that this is an excellent book. This is an excellent book. Thanks, John Waldemar Cohen. This is an impressive work. It's impressive because it was written when nobody spoke Lojban, including John Cohen. That's pretty impressive to write. It's a pretty good book, and that's pretty impressive. This is not from 2016. This is from decades earlier, many decades earlier, when nobody spoke Lojban. So wow, that's amazing. Writing a book about all of the details of Lojban grammar without speaking any Lojban. And this continues to be a fairly accurate description of all of the details of Lojban grammar, which is why people still read it and talk about it, and why I am going to I haven't bothered to write a book about Lojban. I didn't write any. I didn't explain all this stuff. I didn't write a whole thing explaining about. I mean, I explained some of this stuff. I've explained Jai before, but this explains everything, all the things. So I don't know how long this series is going to go on, and how I might just give you the flavor of or maybe we will successfully. Maybe there'll be the 15th part of this series where I could do an exegesis of this chapter and be at this forever. Alien alphabets. Whoa. Okay. So, alright. Everyone's like, is the complete Lojban language accurate? Should I believe the things in the complete Lojban language? Should I read this? Is this how to learn Lojban? Kinda? I mean, it's a classic. It's an excellent book. What is Lojban? Right. So, I mean, this will just give you some. It's funny. I think it's neutral between cultures. I don't know. We still kind of do that. So this is all accurate information. So now what is this book? This is quite true what this says here. This book is a reference grammar and not a tutorial. This is not a tutorial. So it ends up people learn Lojban from this, but it just uses the same example over and over. Miklama lezarshi, I go to the store. Because it's not trying to teach you all the vocab and like be a textbook. It's clearer as far as giving an example of every piece of the grammar to just use the same sentence over and over again. This is not a textbook. It's a very old and complete list. It's just a big pile, a list of all of the grammar. So it has, like, if something is used in every sentence all the time, and it's like the main way you talk in Lojban, then there's one example of it in here using "I go to the store." And if it's something that has been used only a few times in history, then there are the same number of examples in here. I guess lots of people helped. That makes sense. They were all working together. I mean, I think I usually give John Cohen the credit. I assume he did a lot of it, but they definitely were all working together and helping, because they were trying to make Lojban, and they succeeded. So, this is, I don't know how that helps, having the text for the text is also under those things there. Anyway, copyright. I hope this says that you can make an exegesis of it on YouTube. This is fair use for sure. Chapter 2. A quick tour of Lojban grammar with diagrams. This is cute. The summit theta. The altitudinals. Lol. Lol lol. Okay, so one way that this is really super old and feels like it's from history is that by now we talk about, especially when talking to beginners, or like if we were introducing Lojban and explaining it in English, we talk about Lojban grammar in terms of like verb. We say verb, but in this it uses special language. It's like predication. It's called a breedy, and the central part of speech is the celebre. Celebre means verb. Hey, where did it go? I didn't know if celebre was a link. That's cool. It's got links to things. All right, but anyway, back to where we were. The thing is, this text uses the weird old idea that Lojban grammar should like we were like, I don't think it's a normal language, so I don't think it should have weird words. But it is a pretty weird language. Like, it's not like English or a European language because it's got the serial verb constructions, but like, and stuff. Also, it's got some weird stuff, but these Lojban terms will be used for the rest of the book. Sumpti means noun, celebre means verb. So that's just confusing. It's a little weird how nouns and verbs work in Lojban, but you don't really make up a different, like, nouns and verbs work different in every language, and you don't really make up a different word in each language for noun and verb. We use verb in every language and say things like verbs work differently in this language because it has serial verb constructions. That's the normal way to talk about linguistics, and that's weird. It's not inaccurate. It's just freaking weird. A, e, I, o, u. Om is I pronounce dome. O, om, dome, and I pronounce Lojban with no u at the end. Not om, not o, like dome, but o. Ooh, not flu. I guess flute. My flute does just have an ooh. Ooh. There's a rounding sometimes at the end of ooh in English. I don't know when that happens. I don't know how phonetics work. You need to get someone else in here who's a Lojban teacher who teaches you phonetics. Anyway, I was just trying to explain how to say it appears in the English interjection, yeah. Kind of. Yeah. And does it? It can. Yeah. I, a, oi, now there's L. I mean, it's you could update this to add in that now I say L. So there's L. But that's not, like, it doesn't, what I'm trying to show you about this is it's not inaccurate. None of this is inaccurate. This is all super accurate. It's just super old and weird. It got old and weird. And it was never a textbook. It was always kind of weird to be using as a textbook, but it was at least like up to date and made sense. And now it's not up to date in a funny way. Funny ways like that it says sumpti everywhere. Sumpti, when these are nouns. It's teaching how to do the nouns. These are pronouns. The way I explain it is these are pronouns and Lojban is pro-drop. But that's not some words used to indicate celebre relations. These are verbs. It's introducing some verbs so it can give example. Blarijo, blue-green is one of the example words. That's funny. That's the first. I think that I remember reading this, and I think that was one of the first Lojban I ever encountered. Blarijo. So the sumpty positions as x1, x2, x3, x4, and x5. X1 is the subject, x2 is the direct object, and x3 is the indirect object. Lojban can also have like super indirect objects, but they're not like different. It's not that weird. It's weird, but it ain't that weird. Not quite that weird. So, all right, here it's giving us some examples of how to use tavla. This is all accurate. This is, if you say, if, all right, but then it's about to say, let's see, variant breedy structure. It's saying, okay, but okay, this is accurate, and if you don't know this, this is true. You can move nouns, I would say, to before the verb, I would say, and it's saying it weird, like saying the order of sumpti instead of the order of the nouns, but it is explaining the thing where you can put more than one noun before the verb. And then this, and then it starts explaining about observatives. And the thing you need to know about observatives is, don't worry about it. There's no such thing as an observative. Like, it's just so confusing to study. You're trying to study the Lojban, and you're going along, and all of that made sense, and this is all true. But then it comes to these couple weird paragraphs that are like, this sort of sentence is an observative, which is used when someone first observes or takes note of the relationship. That is not a thing. There are no observatives. If you want to say that you're observing something, you can tag it with Zaha. Otherwise, this is just prodrop. Melbi just means it's beautiful, and it might be, and it's not like, doesn't have to be a thing you're currently observing. Like if you were talking about something, like if you were like, oh, Michelangelo's David is a famous statue. Imelbi, it is beautiful, in which case you would not be suddenly saying that you're observing something right now, like yelling smoke. You would just be saying, it's beautiful, the thing I was talking about. Anyway, so this is wrong. This little bit is wrong. But the thing you need to learn, I mean, this is why when people ask, does CLL still work? Is it accurate? Sort of. This is all pretty accurate, except they use weird words to explain things. But then you get to this one part it's just a couple paragraphs that are inaccurate, but all you need to do is ignore it. Just ignore this part. Anyway, this tells you how to use se and te, this is accurate. This is how to turn things around with se. It's a fine explanation. And what else are we gonna? Okay, Niho separates paragraphs, and sort of, because Niho means I'm moving on to another topic, which is like if the way they teach you to do paragraphs in school, when they're like, each paragraph should have a topic. So like if each of your paragraphs has a topic, perhaps beginning each of them with Niho would make sense. But I mean, generally you're just like grouping stuff together into paragraphs. And Niho is when you're like, okay, we're going to talk about something different now. This is all accurate. At first people didn't say E when they were responding. And then, I sort of started that on IRC decades ago. All right, Tandru. The word, using a jargon for this might be fine, but it would be nice to explain some context that there are other languages with Tandru. Tandru is there's a Wikipedia page about Tandru in various languages, that's serial verb construction or verb stacking. There's various languages that do it. Lojban has its own way of doing it, but every language that uses serial verb constructions has its own way. Lojban's way, and most of the languages that have verb stacking, the verbs will all like hang off of the same thing and connect. But Lojban can do things where the modifier verb at the beginning is it can relate in various ways, and then there's various ways you can clarify if you want. So we have especially vague verb stacks, but they're normal. They're a thing. I mean, they're not normal. There are other languages with verb stacks. It's not like you have to make some weird alien word for it, and that's the only possible way to talk about it. having stacks of verbs. Description sumpti. This is accurate enough, I guess. It's kind of weird. Everyone agrees that it's kind of weird to start by saying that it's la tavla ku and then later explain that nobody ever says ku. Like, I've probably said ku like once this week. So it's always kind of weird when things are explained with as if ku was a thing. In many cases, the word ku may be omitted, like always, like every time. But I mean, you can have a style where you say le sutra ku kla tavla, but nobody has ever had that style. Literally, I've never heard anyone talk in that style. So that's a funny way to teach. I mean, they're teaching styles that don't exist, but this was made before he didn't speak Lojban. I totally forgive Job and Colin for all this. It's not like he did a bad job writing this book. He did an awesome job writing this book. He did a very impressive job writing this book, considering he did not speak Lojban. Examples of brivla. Brivla means verb, and selbri means verb phrase. It's confusing. So a verb can be a verb phrase can be just a verb, is what they're saying, which makes sense. That makes sense. Anyway, it's got some examples. This is where I remember learning jar spaghetti from this. I still know jar spaghetti. Sometimes I think of spaghetti as jar spaghetti because it's in here. I mean, if I'm speaking modern Lojban, noodle or something. Noodle means noodles, pasta. Noodle, or asta is the word I'm in that means pasta. So, but jar spaghetti is spaghetti specifically. Pluka, they're teaching pluka. Well, I mean, it's not teaching pluka. It's using pluka, and it teaches dihu. That's cool. Dihu. Something to learn about this is that now you don't always say lahe dihu. You can also say lauhu, or even substitute. There's an old meaning of lao, but nobody used it, so you can substitute lao for lauhu for lahe dihu. What the previous sentence meant. Possession. Well, this is this is just confusing because it tries to show how it's different than English, but it's like, nah. Lojban has methods of specifying all these different kinds of possession precisely and easily. I don't know, maybe it does, but what we do is be super vague, except if we're specifying, like saying in verbs, generally. And then we just skip. It's weird how this is just a couple paragraphs that are like, oh, by the way, you can tuck a noun inside between the article and the verb in your noun phrase. Geraku is a verb, but it's used in a noun phrase here, le geraku, and then you can tuck in another noun, le mi geraku, or you can say le geraku geraku. You can tuck any noun in here, but le mi geraku ku geraku. The dog related to the dog related to me. Le mi gerku ku gerku. But so that's a funny, funky little piece of Lojban grammar, and just introducing it in a couple paragraphs and saying possession is a confused Englishy perspective on it. This all has a confused Englishy perspective from before. Technically, there's some differences in the Lojban. Like right now, you can't say Doijan, because Doijan would be a name, Doijan. Like, hi Doijan, you have to say, now you have to put a dot before the John and say Doijan. You can say Doijan, hello John, Shoi John, or you can say hi to Doijan, Shoi Doijan, Shoi Doijan, Shoi Doijan. There's both a person named John and a person named Doijan. And back in this, the rules back here was they were like, teaching Shoi and Shoho, but then somewhere in here isn't going to teach that you can't have you couldn't have law in names. You couldn't have doi or law in names. Law was the one that people would not even notice that there was law in a name often, and just that rule just was never obeyed. It was why dot side took over. They thought they could make it so you could say Doijan and they would just be like, okay, a name Doijan, the name Doijan is not allowed, and the name Lajan is not allowed. But yeah, law is a pretty common sound, so there's a lot of names with law in them, in like sneaky little places in the middle. So that was a hard rule to follow, and nobody did. Now it's just randomly teaching us questions. This is not a textbook. There is no, it doesn't like go over any of this stuff. It's just like here's the basic, this, they just threw in how to do imperatives here. Is that like, that's it? That's all we're going to do, go over ko. It has this classic kokokuroshi. I didn't know that was from the complete Lojban language. Kokokuroshi is a thing. I say that. That's a Lojban saying. Take care of yourself and be taken care of by yourself. It's fun how it translates to that when it's quite simple in Lojban. Kokokuroshi. So this is accurate information about how to ask questions, how to ask ma questions. You can ask more than one. You can ask mo questions, like what verb should I substitute for mo? Mo is a verb question. Who is a truth question? That is all accurate enough. This is confusing. People are always confused. Like, it says to respond with gohi, and then, but like in real life and conversations, things will just move on, and you're wanting to answer a question that was a while ago, and it doesn't tell you how to like answer a question that was a while ago. Just like, if someone asks "Hodokandro," and then things just keep going, and there other people say other things like "Hodokandro," "Hodoklamlo panka." Are you healthy? Are you going to go to the park? Then you can just respond this way. Just repeat the verb you want to respond about. Like, "Ini kandro," "Ini baklamlo panka," "Ijehu mi kandro." It's true that I am healthy. "Imi jaha kandro." I am in fact healthy. Jaha is the opposite of na. So mikandro is like saying jaha, but if you say jaha, that's like emphasizing like I'm not saying not. I'm saying jaha. Jaha kandro. Indicators, what does that mean? Indicators. Attitudinal indicators. Oh, it means shimao. Okay. I was like, what are we even talking about here? Yeah. No, that's not. I don't know if obligation is a good translation of but that's fine. Tenses. Okay. Lojban has so many tense systems that what are we even? Why are there tenses? What is it saying about tenses? Mi klama ijiha dostali. That's not a tense. I don't understand. So this is that's, oh, okay, tenses starts on this page. All right. So teaching and we, and it sort of teaches how the things go on there's a whole paragraph. I mean, there's a whole chapter called about attitudinals. So this is just like a different summary of it. Okay, and then this is where we talk about tenses. This is also technically wrong because the shu is required under mostly the Bankle that people speak in, the language subsets that people speak in these days. There's something called the shmevla brivla merger, where John is just a verb. So since John is just a verb, it will form a tonru with klama. John klama is a verb stack. So you should say la John with a pause and then say shu. La John shuklama. That shu is mandatory now. That's a little difference. There's little differences like that. And then there's that the whole thing is just off somehow. There's lots of little ways that it's just off somehow. This seems accurate. This stuff about this is the stuff about tenses, and you can put a tense in a. I mean, it's kind of confusing how it talks about it, but that's fine. Now, this is true. You can put a tense inside of a noun phrase like this. Lojban grammatical terms. Yeah, just don't make a chart of them. Just don't make people learn all of this. Okay, where are we at? Okay, the hills are live with the sounds of Lojban. This is how to speak Lojban. Is this accurate? I don't know. There's probably errors in here. I do use the letter Q now. I use the letter Q to mean any click sound. Like I'll use or whatever. Like how R is like any RE sound, so I use Q for any click sound. I don't really use it that much though. And W we do use sometimes because there's a way of using, like if you do W A, it goes wah. So sometimes people have spelled that with W instead of with a U. And H is used, H is the uppercase of apostrophe. So that's kind of funny. Let's see. What else are they saying here? Capitalizing stuff and names. You can do that. We used to way more though. We used to capitalize the whole syllable like that, and these days you would also, or perhaps more often, see just the O capitalized if you want to emphasize the emphasis. You don't have to do that at all. Don't do that. For the phonetics of Lojban, I wish someone who understood phonetics would explain this to you. I can't like tell you what all these R's are. Wait, this one's ra. Wait, no, this one's ra. Ra. I don't. One of these is ra. I don't know. There's a bunch of R's. And there's one that's not. It doesn't list here. It doesn't even say about it. There's also I, which is written as I is secretly, optionally present in every cluster, and so it's just written as a cluster of consonants have a secret I in them. It might explain that somewhere here, but it doesn't emphasize it, and people reading this have not felt like they are able to say I, and they're like, Lojban is hard to say. But if you introduce it, like, the way Lojban works is it's always consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. If that's boring, you can skip some of the I if you want to make it clustery. I like to present it that way because it's more free and easier. E, I, O. This is funny. I don't know, commas. The thing about commas, people are like, what about commas? We don't even use commas anymore. Commas were supposed to like separate syllables in names. That doesn't seem important anymore. And so we don't do that. We don't commas in names. I mean, go for it if you want to, but just like if you're the confusing thing is this is a fairly long book. It has like one paragraph sometimes about things that are tremendously important. Then it'll go on for a while about how commas work, and we don't even use commas at all. So confusing. It's a little bit off and a little bit confusing. That's all. There exists 16 diphthongs. I suppose it's 17 now that there's ow. Let's see. I, a, oi, ow, ow. Ya, ye, yo, you, wa, we, wo, woo. Ia, wo. Ya, wa. Oh yeah, ya and wa. Those, yeah, these are just, I've only seen those as the word what means like the letter U. So that's, can you have those in any other words? Names, I guess. Yeah, L, M, N, and R can be syllabic. That's why how there was a person named C-L-S-N, Schulzen. vowel pairs with apostrophes. What's it explaining about that? Yeah, great. There are Lojban does have vowels. It's true. So bored of this part. I always this is how to remember which Lojban clusters you can do, is to remember which ones are voiced and unvoiced, and you can't then that you can't mix them. Is that right? Is that how it works? But I just the way I remember it is just remembering which clusters there are words with them in them, because I know words with all of the clusters that there are. So if I can remember a word with a cluster, then it's allowed. That's how I remember it. Blah 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 blah. The MZ is forbidden. I forget. I forget. Is there the I hear it's not true that they disallowed MZ just to make James Cook Brown not able to pronounce his name good. I hear that's just a vicious, untrue rumor. Yeah, these are the clusters that can start a word. Some of them are hard. Blah, bruh, shva, shka, shla, shma, shna, shpa, shra, shta. I guess English doesn't have those so much, does it? Ja looks funny, but it's just ja. Dra, za. That za is funny for an English, but again, you can say dza. If words are, if you're trying to say zama, chores, dzama, zama, then you can say dzama. Dzama is totally legit pronunciation of zama, so it's fine. La, fra, gla, gra, jva, very low, jva, jda, jga, jma, jva, kl, kr, mla, mbra, pla, pra, sfa, shka, sla, sma, sna, spa, sra, sta, cha, tra, ca, vla, vra, pla, kra, zba, zda, zga, zma, zva. So people are like, Lojban is hard. The word zbani means bay. Zbani, that's hard to say, but you can say zibani. Zibani is fine. Zibani, bay. Okay. Well, this all makes sense. This is all fairly accurate. Here's where it finally, I've explained it the other way around. Like, you can say virusi. Also, if you want, you can abbreviate it to Vrusi. Virusi, Vrusi. Virusi, Vrusi. Virusi is totally fine with the ed. It's fine. Virusi. And you can use the English R. Virusi. Totally, you're good. If you say Virusi, you are good and valid, and we love you and support you. That's fine. So like, but if you want, whatever. It looks scary. Kapschke looks scary, but it's kapish, kapish, kapishike, 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 kapishike. Blah 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 blah. I think this is accurate enough, isn't it? And it does bother to explain about the vowel. It just does it in an order which would not be ideal for a textbook, which this is not. Is this accurate? Is this how we syllabalize? Probably. Okay, yeah, no, it says you could syllabalize it either klezba or klezba. So, yeah, that's fine. There are 3 levels of stress. Is this true? Weak stress is required for syllables containing a syllabic consonant, or a buffer vowel. Sure. Okay. I had not been thinking of it that way. So that's kind of, it's kind of funny to be sure, that's kind of the description. The is sort of shorter and weaker. So yes, that's true. It's true, but confusing. That's what CLL is true and confusing. What are we explaining here? Bisaja, Dahudja. These 2 syllabifications sound the same. Which 2? Dahudja, Dahudja. Yeah. those pretty those are the same, and it's explaining repeatedly that syllabification is easy. That's fine. Um, and then the little chart of IPA they use, that's useful. This is a very excellent, well compiled book that's just kind of funnily out of date. I, A, Oi, Ow, Ah, Ya, Yeah, Ye, Yo, You, Wa, We, Wo, Woo, Woo, Yeah, Million, yeah, okay, yeah, million, Wa, Was, What. Oddball orthographies. What does this mean? Oddball? There's all different ways of writing Lojban by now. This is but these are not. I'm not familiar with that one. I don't know how to read this Cyrillic one. But there are what Tengwar? Wow, no, we don't use this either. There are lots of orthographies for Lojban that we do use. So this is not inaccurate. I mean, if this is apparently a way to write Lojban in Tengwar, it's not like it's wrong. It's just if you were going to introduce ways to write Lojban, now you would write about, like, there's Balermorna, that's what people must like, and there's Sridharmorna, Draluhu, and that Tengwar one would be like way down on the list. Obliku. I forgot this person playing with a Obliku was so right angly. Well, they're shaped like a block. Obliku. So this is going to tell you how to make. This is telling you how to make Lushvo and stuff. This is probably mostly accurate. As I mean, Shmavo, yeah. I mean, this is the Shmavo are shaped like this. This is still all accurate. Reserved for experimental use. Now this is, I mean, that's confusing. It's confusing. There's nothing about like things reserved for anything. These are just normal words by now, and there's a bunch of words that start with X, and I mean, they were just starting, and they had like official. Had an idea of, we're doing the official thing, and maybe you'll do experimental stuff. We'll give you the X to experiment. I mean, this is a long time ago, and the organization that was making stuff official like that doesn't very much exist now. So, that's not a thing. Official versus experimental, and if you hear that, people are just saying it out of habit from before. They call things experimental, but it's like a jargon word that means certain things that were in certain categories. It's fine. This is saying that you can put spaces or not between Shmavo, which is true. You can put spaces or not between Shmavo. True. Happens. And this is all accurate. What? Oh, it's saying if you emphasize the a shmavo right before, if you use a little particle right before a verb, and you emphasize it, you're going to have to pause before the verb to make sure that the stress. You can put a stress on, like you're saying, the nanmu. You can put a stress on the re, but you have to pause after the re nanmu. That's this. So that's an accurate explanation of how Lojban sounds. That's fine. They serve as the equivalent of English nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Is a very confusing way to explain it. Brief law only are verbs, and the noun phrases are made out of verbs using a nominalizing particle. So the verbs do appear in noun phrases. Verbs appear in noun phrases and in verb stacks, which are not adjectives or adverbs, but perform a similar function in many sentences to how adjectives and adverbs are used in English. There is a more clear explanation, because brief law are just verbs. Brief law are verbs. Brief law end in a vowel. That's accurate. So, it's accurately explaining what brief law is. It's just confusing that it just said that they're not just verbs, which they are. Brivla means verb. Brivla. Fuhivla is, the only difference with this is that Fuhivla are not necessarily borrowed from other languages or borrowed at all. They can be borrowed from Lojban itself. Those are Jbojbo Fuhivla or Jbofuvi. They can be a Jbofuvi, or they can also be a blalalávla, a word that you just make up whatever sound you want. So since they're not all copied, we don't call them Fuhivla anymore. Or you can call them Fuhivla, but we also call them Zihevla, free words. Because you can do whatever with the Zihevla. So those are the free words. The Gismu do not represent any sort of systematic partitioning of semantic space. I know the Gismu are very Englishy. The Gismu are super English like, is what the Gismu are like, and people are very weird about the Gismu shape, because this is saying how like Gismu are the fundamental basic thing, and but it's just a shape of words. Like those are the words that they made first, and so now they're like the most old-fashioned basic words. Is what the Gismu are. The Gismu are like words for babies. I call them behavla, child words, because like shreka means shirt, but it's, yeah, and that's the word for shirt, shreka, so blanu, blue, is just a basic word. It means blue. And then there's more advanced words that are like kinds of blue, like tanbla means sky blue. And those are fancier words. And there's also like we've made various sounds of words, lots of zihevla and stuff that have newer, more Lojbani meanings. Like, to just accepting existing gender concepts is not the way. Like, just this is that's very English, to just have words nanmu and ninmu for man and woman. And now we have other words like nonmu, agender, or nunmu, a non-binary person. With trying to move on from this to a more modern and less English-based semantics. So the Gismu aren't primary; they're just old. But by Gismu I mean the original Gismu, and you can make new things in these shapes now. No one will stop you. I make things in those shapes all the time, and no one ever stops me. Lujwo, this is still accurate. Sopahi attempted to destroy the Lujwo system, but people didn't listen to him when he said we should abandon this Lujwo system, which I don't know if that's related to he ended up leaving and making his own language, and mostly he does that now. But is this a good explanation? I don't know. Bar de bloti means big boat. Okay. So, I mean, it's sort of, yeah, this is a kind of explanation of how verb stacks work in Lojban, but kind of awkward. It's sort of weird and old the way it explains it. So like, this is accurate. It says that you can put together, it's saying how there's a tanru, or a verb stack, that each lujvo, each compound word is sort of implies a verb stack that it looks like. Because it's like putting the same word together, so that's the same as like putting them in a stack, and so they're sort of related, and it's explaining the relationship of them in a not especially clear way, I guess. Weird size soldier meal. Wow, I didn't know that word. I'm learning a word. I'm learning it here. I just learned the word soyersai, so the field rations. That's a pretty word. Now I know a word. It is possible to invent new Lujvo. It's true. You can invent Lujvo. You can invent Shimjvo if you want. That metaphorical Lujvo are called Shimjvo. You can invent those if you want. Or you can invent the Hevla. I like the Hevla because there's not as many of them, and so they sound cool. And You can there's all different funzy Hevla shapes you can use. This is explaining how the rafsi work. I think this is fairly accurate. Is this they're the short rafsi forms, and it's explaining how they're. I mean, the rafsi system is ridiculous. This should have changed. All of this would be out of date if we could figure out how to make this out of date, but it's hard to you can't really change how the Rafsi system is very calcified, because even if these things haven't been used much for words, it's hard to figure out which ones actually haven't been used and figure out a way to free them up for new words, even though they took the Rasi and assigned them to ridiculous things, and then assigned a bunch of them to the same thing, but it's so that's why some people don't like the Lojban system. It has its upsides and its downsides, and I think the Lojban system is almost as old-fashioned as the CLL, and so this information is not inaccurate, because you can't say patata, you can't say pataha, you have to say patataha. That's accurate. But this is more confusing, how you can't say mudzishro, because that's mu. Wait, yeah, is it? No, DS just doesn't go together. You have to say mudzishro. But then does it explain in here about the complicated parts of the word making rules, like that you can't there's certain you have to worry about whether a thing is going to fall off the beginning of your thing. I don't know. Fuhivla, what do they explain about Fuhivla? Oh my, yeah, there are 4 stages of borrowing in Lojban. This is accurate, as in these are all ways that you can speak in Lojban. What's not accurate about it is this is not a thing that you this was never successfully was a thing that you start at the first stage of Fuhivla and then gradually make more and more words going further into shortening the Fuhivla. That was an idea. But I mean, really, people can hardly be bothered to make a single word for things. So, people either bother to make a word for something, and then they try to make the word as beautiful as possible, or they don't. So there's not, stage 3, stage 4. Nothing goes through any stages. People go immediately to inventing a word that's shaped the way they want to sound. And they can use any of these stages or types of Fuhivla to try to make the sounds that they want to make. That's how it always worked, except it didn't happen much at first. At first, there wasn't much of anything, so there wasn't things happening in stages or happening at all. And then when people started to make a bunch of Fuhivla at all, they just made the short forms ones that they wanted to. But this is explaining how to make the longer, clearer type of Fuhivla, which it's not a stage like Fuhivla progress and become different words over time, but it is a type of Fuhivla that you can make, that it's very clear. Like shidr spaghetti, it's very clear that it's got this whole shidr from food, shidja. So you can make very clear words for things. You can make a word for maple tree where it's clear that it's a tree, because you say trishu, tree, trisha casero, and but also you can say, I think we say it arshe, isn't it arshe? Csku.org is a good dictionary. I recommend the dictionary, Csku.org, where you will find Lida Csku. What was I going to look up? The arshe is, we just say arshe, but it's cool to say trisha chaseru because it sounds nice, and it has the trish, which it makes it clear that it's a kind of tree. So if you were talking about, you can just go straight to making a word for a thing. Like you can call maples arshe if you want, or whatever. That's how we do. But also, there's also the long ones. And those could be useful if you were wanting it to be super clear what kind of thing you were talking about. So you can, if you wanted to say trisha chasheru, because it wasn't going to be clear that you meant a tree, a kind of tree, if you don't feel like people know the word arsh, or you don't, or so that makes sense. These are useful. This is a real thing. This explanation is kind of this explanation goes on so long about the the long strange vocabulary we don't use very much. It's just very this is this is specifically not true. We do very specifically use dineh in the word for people. We're just talking about the dineh yesterday, and they totally did not call them Navajo, which is kind of rude. They're saying Bangradine, I think, for the Dineh language. Bangradine, which is the form with the Bangar. Here's an explanation of Shmene. The important thing that this left off here, this leaves out lots of interesting things that aren't important, like that, like how you, like that names can seem like Lojban, like they can seem to be made out of Rafsi and seem to suggest a Lojban, and you should be kind of careful of that. Like, for instance, Lojbab named himself Lojbab because his name is Bob, but then he's also named Lojban Logic. He's also named Logic Soap because soap is Bob from Zbabu. So that's something you should pay attention to with names, maybe, just because you might want to know if you're naming yourself Soap or whatever. This is not having the syllables la, lie, or doi in them. No. This is very old. This never happened. Nobody successfully changed to lahi when they were saying a name that had lie in it. They just didn't even notice it had lie in it. And yeah. So that's not a thing. Dot side is the way it works. This is little details, little wrong details everywhere. So making it a little bit confusing, but it's still, most of this is true, I guess, isn't it? Yeah, we still add a final, S is very often the consonant we use. If you need to put a consonant at the end of the name, so we will often use S. An important thing you need to know is names are verbs now. This is all just a description of another way of shaping verbs, and they're verbs that we usually use for names of things, but they're just another kind of verb. But whatever, there's a bunch of examples of how to change names into Lojban sounds, so that's good. This is the only thing they do give a bunch of examples for. What? Rules for inserting pauses. It's very sound that that's not, like, that's just how Lojban has glottal stops somewhere, is how it sounds. Every shmene must be preceded by a pause unless, no. Just every shmene not every shmene, what? Every shmevla. Every shmevla. I mean, a shmene means name. So it's very confusing if they're using shmene to mean namevla, to mean shmevla, because you don't have to use shmevla for names. They're using shmene as an English jargon term, but they're not using it to mean name. Shmene means name. They should say shmevla if they want to use a Lojban jargon term. It's very confusing. It's only a little tiny details that are wrong. The whole thing of it's confusing to have little things that are wrong. Little things that are wrong and a totally wrong emphasis. So what is this? This is kind of useful advice about Lojban making. This goes on with some kind of useful advice, their idea about how Lojban, like Lojban style, I would say. But yeah, that's fine. it's impressive. It's impressive that he wrote this book without speaking Lojban, and it has like tips on luge foam making style that sort of makes sense, and it's mostly still accurate, but not every detail is accurate. And reading something it's not even a textbook, it's an old reference grammar, so it's supposed to be super technical and super accurate about everything, and then it's not quite. It's it's accurate about a frustrating amount of things, like more than 90%, so that you start trusting the things you read there. And then so it's super confusing when there's just a couple things that are just a little bit old-fashioned and off. But I just explained a bunch of them to you now. So did you that hopefully that helped. I don't know, maybe sometime I'll get back to this and give you more exegesis on the rest of it. It's a long book. It goes on, how far have we got? We got the 68 of 584 pages. So I don't know if I'm really going to do the whole thing ever, but there's at least a taste for you of how accurate it is and the kinds of things that are wrong.